Hi everyone, how are you doing today? Hope you're all doing incredible, fantastic wherever you are. Wish you all doing wonderful, wonderful in this new year. And for those who have a great day today, wish you all the best. May God send you lots of blessing, abundance, and miracle to your special day. As I promised before that I'm going to uh, give a motivation about expanding your consciousness so you can get out of this matrix program or the ring pass knot, or I call it ora bora. Like the snake eating its tail. It is impossible, right or not? But this topic is quite serious and I do not like to channel a serious topic. See, I cannot laugh. Well, actually, laughing makes me glowing. Okay, for your sake, I try my best to channel this serious topic. So I have to um, try not to laugh. Let's start. The topic is about expanding consciousness. Consciousness is beyond the mind could grasp. It is more than the mind or word can convey. The intention of this video is to provide information for your mind, also to inspire you to directly discover your true nature, true colors. I mean true natures, not true colors. We are living at a time in history where we have not only forgotten the role of consciousness, but we have forgotten who we are. This forgetting is Maya. Therefore, it is called Dunia Maya in Indonesian language. Don't you know? I tell you. The illusion of the self. Playing the role as humans, most of us live immersed in our daily robotic routine activities with little notion of who we are, why we are here, and where we are going. Most of us have never realized our true self, or Jesus called soul, which is beyond shape, beyond identification, beyond name, form, or beyond thinking or term. As a consequence, we believe we have just these limited bodies, the identity, the I am. We live in fear, either conscious or unconscious, that the limited self-structure or social program that we are identified with will soon perish. In today's world, the vast majority of people who are engaged in spiritual practices such as yoga, prayer, meditation, chanting, or any kind of ritual are practicing techniques which are conditioned, which means they are just part of the ego and social construct and program. The quest and the activity isn't the problem. Thinking you have found the answer in some external form is the major problem. Spirituality, in its most common form, is no different than the cathartic thinking that is going on everywhere around the globe. It is a further agitations of the mind, more human doing as opposed to soul doing. The ego construct wants more money, more status, more power, more pleasure, more leisure, more sexo, more attention, more admiration, more popularity, more love, more of everything. Aren't you greedy? Those on the so-called spiritual path desire to be more spiritual, more awake, more equanimous, more peaceful, more enlightened. When there is a desire to acquire something, we can be sure that it is the ego construct at play. Expanding consciousness is not about obtaining or adding anything else to your inner self. To realize consciousness is to enjoy to live yet ready to die. Life and death are like yin and yang, an inseparable continuum, endlessly unfolding with no beginning and no end. When we avoid death, we also push away life. When we embrace and experience the essential truth directly of who we are, there is no longer fear of life or death. We are told who we are by our society and cultural program, and at the same time, we become slaves to the deeper unconscious biological craving and aversion that governs our choices and desires. The ego construct is nothing more than the impulse to repeat the mundane, which is familiar. It is simply the past that energy once experienced and the tendency for the energy to revisit the past again, whether it is positive or negative for the living organism. But most of all, the negative is dominant. There are endless levels of memory or mind, spirals within spirals. When our consciousness identifies with this mind or ego construct, it ties us to social conditioning or program, which we call the matrix. There are aspects of the ego that we can be conscious of, but it is the unconscious, the brain wiring, the primal existential fears, like in our reality, fear of COVID. That is just illusion. There are actually driving the whole biological mechanism of our mind, body, mental, attitude, activities, movement, and this global world, direction, and economic situation. The Great Reset. Pandemic, not pandemic. Endless patterns of grasping towards pleasure and avoidance of pain are sublimated into pathological behaviors. Our job, our connection, our relationships, our marriage, our beliefs, our very goals, our expectation, our desires, and our whole way of thinking and living. Like sheep, most humans live and die in passive enslavement or passive subjugation and being led to the budget house by the few in power. We are just feeding our life to the matrix. You know why this can happen? It is because a few control the many, and this happen due to many give the power to the few. You are an idiot, right? We live lives locked into narrow patterns, lives often filled with suffering, and it never occurs to us that we can actually become free soul and free spirit. It is possible to let go of the life that has been inherited from the past, to live the one that is waiting to come forth through the inner world. We were all born into this world with biological conditioned structures, but without self realization and self actualization. Often, when we look into a young child's eyes, there is no trace of self, only luminous emptiness ready to be programmed with indoctrination. The person one grows into a mask worn over consciousness. Shakespeare said, all the words is a stage, and all the men and women are merely players. In an awakened individual, consciousness shines through the personality, through the mask. That is why their aura so bright, shining lightly. We can see through their aura or crown chakra that emits light. When we are awake, we do not become identified with our character or our identity of who we are. We do not believe that we are the mask that we are wearing, but nor do we give up playing a role. When we are identified with our identities, our persona, this is Maya, the big illusion of the self. Consciousness is awakening from the dream of our identity in the play and drama of life. Humanity today is deeply trapped into a dark cave and deeply transfixed by fake illusions than ever. We are like a group of sheep who live chained in a smart screen such as TV screen, smartphone, gadget, our entire lives, facing a confined wall fed by fake informations. All we could see only fear programs projected on the screen by the information presented in front of the screen, by the programmer, by the social media. This puppet show and manipulation and control becomes our word of today. The shadows were as close as the prisoners would ever get to seek reality, even after being told by those awakened individuals about the reality of the agenda of great reset around the globe. We continue to believe that the fear is our true and only reality. Isn't this dramatic? Even if we have been told there was hidden plan behind the screen, as there is evil spirit trying to lock us or trap us in their total control, we are unwilling to leave the cave and what is familiar and what is convenient. Still we embrace the fear and be the slave wearing that symbol. Of course, you know what I mean. Do not report me. Humanity today is like the people who have only seen the shadow on wall, constantly being fed with misinformation that being disguised as fake truth. Irony or not, The shadows are analogous to our thoughts, the fear. The realm of thinking is the only realm that we know. But there is another realm that is beyond thinking, beyond the dualistic mind. My question is, are we willing to leave the cave, the fear program, and the needle solution as a mandatory or compulsory by a few elite in power to allow us to move from places to places or to do our daily activities? Do we choose to be sheep that are geared to the badger house, or do we want to follow our truth and discover who we really are and what is our mission here? In order to awaken to consciousness, it takes a willpower to switch our focus from the fear and direct our thoughts towards the light that is God in the higher power. When a person is only used to darkness, then they must gradually be afraid of light, like proclaiming any new paradigm. It takes time and effort and a willpower to explore the new as well as to set the old. The mind can be manipulated to fall into a trap for consciousness, a labyrinth, or a dead end prison. It is not that we are in prison, we are the prison. The prison is an illusion. If we are identified with an illusionary self, then we are asleep. Once we are awake of the prison, if we fight to get out of the illusion, then we are treating the illusion as if it is real and we still remain asleep. Except now the dream becomes a nightmare. We will be chasing and running from shadows forever. I tell you, consciousness is awakened from identification with the prison that I call me. We can never actually be free because wherever we go, our prison is there. Awakening is not about get rid of the mind or matrix. On the contrary, when we are not identified with it, then we can experience the play of life more fully, enjoying the soul as it is, without craving or fear. In the ancient teaching, this was called the divine game of Lila, the game of playing in duality. Human consciousness is a continuum. In reality, humans are recognized with the material self, the physical body. On the other hand, consciousness is the cessation of self. Every step we take on expanding towards consciousness brings less suffering. Less suffering doesn't mean life is free from suffering or pain. Consciousness is beyond the duality of pain and pleasure. What it means is that there is less mind, less self-creating resistance to whatever unfolds in front of us. And that resistance is what creates suffering. Expanding consciousness even once allows us to see what is on the other end of the continuum, to see that there is something other than the material world, expectation, self-desire, or vested interest. The word of supranatural. When there is an actual cessation of the self structure in expanding consciousness, there is no egoic thought, no self, no duality, yet there is still the I am, anatta, or the no-self. In that emptiness is the dawn of wisdom, the understanding that the immanent self is far beyond the play of duality, beyond the entire continuum. The immanent self is timeless, spaceless, unchanging, always now. Enlightenment is the merging of the primordial spiral, the ever-changing manifested word or lotus in which time unfolds with your timeless being. Your inner wiring grows like an ever-unfolding flower as you disidentify with the self, becoming a living bridge between the world of time and timeless. Merely realizing the immanent self is only the beginning of one's path. Most people will have to experience and lose consciousness countless times in meditation before they are able to integrate it into other dimension or stage of life. It is not unusual to have profound insight into the nature of our being during meditation or self-inquiry, only to find ourselves once again falling back into old patterns, forgetting the truth of who we are. To realize the stillness or emptiness in every stages of life, every facets of oneself, it is to become emptiness, dancing as all things. Stillness is not something separate from movement. It is not the opposite to movement. In consciousness, stillness is recognized to be identical with movement. Form is identical to emptiness. This is nonsensical to the mind because the mind is the coming into being of duality. René Descartes saying, "I think, therefore I am." No other phrase more clearly encapsulates the fall of civilization and the full-scale identification with the shadows on the cave wall. As in the movie Matrix, we could all be hooked up to some elaborate program feeding us an illusory dream world. In the movie, humans live out their lives in the Matrix, while on another level, they were merely batteries feeding their life force to the controller, who used our collective energy for their own selfish evil agenda. People always want to blame the external factors for the state of the world or for their own unhappiness, whether it is a person, a particular group or country, religion, or some kind of controlling illuminati like this great evil demon or the sentient machine in the Matrix. Ironically, the demon we envisioned was the very thing that we define ourselves by. When we expand consciousness, it becomes clear that there is a controller, there is a machine, an evil demon, leeching our life day after day. The machine is us. Our self-structure is made up of many little conditioned sub-programs or little bosses. One little boss that craves food, another craves money, another status, possession, power, sex, intimacy, and the list go on to Paris or to Germany. Another wants popularity or attention from others. That's I call attention seekers. Like nowadays in the social media program like TikTok, they are craving for attention. The desires are literally endless and can never be satisfied. We spend a lot of our time and energy decorating our prisons, succumbing to pressures to improve our mask, and feeding the little bosses, making them obesity more powerful. Like drug addicts, the more we try to satisfy the little bosses, the more we end up craving. The path to freedom is not self improvement or somehow satisfying the self agenda, but it is a dropping of the self agenda altogether. Some people fear that awakening their true nature will mean that they lose their individuality and enjoyment of life. Actually, the opposite is true. The unique individualism of the soul can only be expressed when the conditioned self is tackled properly or overcome properly. Because we remain asleep in the matrix, most of us never find out what the soul actually wants to express. The path to expanding consciousness involves meditation, prayer, which is both observing the conditioned self that with changes and realizing our true nature that which doesn't change. When we come to our still point, the source of our being, then we await further instruction without any enforcement on how our external world has to change. Not my will, but higher will or God's will be done. If the mind only tries to change the outer world to conform with the idea of what we think the path should be, it is like trying to change the image in your Photoshop by manipulating the final touch. To make the image in a Photoshop smile, we obviously cannot manipulate the final touch. We have to make the image smile. Once we realize the authentic self, it doesn't mean that anything on the outside necessarily need to change. What changes is the conscious, intelligent, inner energy or prana, which is freed from conditioned patterns and becomes available to be directed by the soul, the invisible. We can only become aware of the soul's mission when we are able to watch the conditioned self and its endless pursuits, expectation, desire, vested interest, and let them go. Go with the wind. I can still laugh. As human, we are toiling endlessly, building day and night for a tomorrow that will never arrive. And then we die. If we truly realize this truth, then we will either go mad like a mad cow if we are identified with our egoic personas, or will awaken and become free. We can never succeed in the outer struggle because it is just a reflection of our inner world. The brutal joke, the absurdity of the situation becomes clear when there is a complete and utter failure of the egoic self to awaken through its futile pursuits. In the Bible, it is stated how many times you have to forgive someone. 7 times, 77 times means countless times. There is a saying, before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. What has changed? Can you tell me? The inner resistance to the struggle has been released or dropped, or rather, the one who struggle has come to realization it is just illusory. The individual will or individual mind and God's will or higher mind have been aligned. Consciousness is ultimately a dropping of all inner resistance to all changing phenomena without exception. The one who is able to realize inner peace irrespective of external condition has expanded consciousness. We drop resistance not because we condone one thing or another, but so that our inner freedom and happiness is not dependent on the outer projections or influence or situation anymore. It is important to note that when we accept reality as it is, it doesn't necessarily mean that we stop taking action in the world or we become meditating or praying pacifist. Actually, the opposite can be true. When we are free to act without being driven by unconscious motives or influences, then it is possible to act in alignment with divine God, with the full force of our inner energy behind us. Many will argue that in order to change the world and bring about peace, we need to fight harder against our perceived enemies. Fighting for peace is like shouting for silence. It is just creates more war of what we do not want. These days, there is war against everything. A war against terror, a war against virus, a war against hunger. Every war is actually a war against ourselves. The fight is part of a collective delusion. We say that we want peace, but we continue to elect leaders who engage in war. We lie to ourselves, saying that we want prosperity, but we keep on electing leader who is corrupt or greedy. We claim we want to be healthy, but we continue to buy the toxic product from the big pharma instead of back to nature. We say we want clean air, but we continue to pollute with plastic waste. We claim we want to be free from virus, but we keep on taking the needle cure, which make us the walking biolab. We want science to cure us of cancer, but we won't change our self-destructive habitual behaviors by consuming all the genetically modified food and factory-made foods that make us more likely to be sick. We delude ourselves that we are promoting a better life. We do not want to see our hidden parts that are participating and condoning suffering and death. The belief that we can win a war against cancer, hunger, terror, and any kind of virus that was created by our own thinking, behavior, hidden agenda, planned motives, our greed of money actually let us continue to delude ourselves that we do not have to change the way that we operate on this planet. The inner world is where the revolution must first take place. Only when we can directly feel the spiral of life within will the outer world come into alignment with the universe. Until then, anything we do will add to the chaos already created by the collective mind. War and peace coexist together in an endless pattern. They are one continuum. One half cannot exist without the other, just as light cannot exist without dark. Rise cannot exist without downfall. The world seems to want light without darkness, wholeness without emptiness, happiness without sadness, life without death. The more mind gets involved, the more fragmented the world becomes. Every solution that comes from the egoic mind is driven by the idea that there is a problem, and the solution becomes an even greater problem than what is trying to solve. What we resist persists. Human ingenuity creates new mRNA vaccine only to find nature getting more cunning as virus and bacteria gets virulent since our immune system has been replaced with the spike proteins and the nanobots. Despite our best efforts in the ongoing combat, the prevalence of virus and even cancer is actually increasing. The number of hungry, sick, sudden death people in the world and around the globe exponentially rise. The death number globally continues to drastically rise with sudden death symptoms, heart attack, stroke, myocarditis, pericarditis, etc., lupus, and all the new symptoms of death. What's wrong with our approach? Like the successor apprentice from Goethe's point, we have taken hold of a great power, but we do not have the wisdom to wield it. The problem is that we do not understand the tool that we are using. We do not understand the human mind and its great role and interest. The crisis is born of the limited conditioned way in which we think, the way we feel and experience life. Our rationalism has robbed us of our ability to recognize and experience the wisdom of many ancient cultures. Our egoic thinking has robbed us of the ability to feel the depth and profound sacredness of life, the numericity of life, and to realize entirely different levels of consciousness which are now almost lost to humanity. Without this awakened or expand consciousness, any knowledge or understanding obtained by the limited self would be dangerous, disconnected from higher wisdom or God wisdom. The esoteric meaning of the story, the fall of the Garden of Eden, the book of knowledge of good and evil, whose fruit Adam and Eve were tempted to eat. Humanity, of course, has already eaten the forbidden fruit, already opened the book of knowledge, and has been cast out of the garden. The serpent is a metaphor for the primordial spiral that extends from the microcosm to the macrocosm. Today, the serpent is living as you and you. It is the egoic mind expressed as the manifested word. We have never before had access to so much knowledge and information. We have gone deep into the material world, even finding the so-called God particle. Now, humanity in power is trying to play the role of God by changing DNA to mRNA. We have never been more delusional, more ignorant of who we are and how to live, and we do not understand the mechanism by which we create suffering and sudden death. Our thinking has created the technological world as it is now. Whenever we label something as good or bad, or create preference in our mind, it is due to the coming into being of the egoic structures of self-interest. The solution is not to fight for peace or conquer nature, but to simply recognize the truth that the very existence of the ego structure creates duality, a split between self and other, mine and yours, man and nature, inner and outer. The ego is violence. It requires a separation, a class barrier between rich and poor, educated and not educated, beauty and the beast. Without ego, there is no war against anything. There is no hubris. There is no overreaching desire to create huge profit, monopoly, and total control of or other country or nation sovereignty. This external crisis in our world reflect a serious inner crisis. We do not know who we care. We are completely identified with our egoic identities, consumed by fears, and are cut off from our true nature. Races, religions, countries, political affiliation, any group that we belong to, or reinforce our egoic identities. Almost every group that exists on the planet Earth today wants to claim its perspective, it's true and correct and powerful. And we do on individual level too. By claiming the truth as its own, the group perpetuates its own existence in the same way that an ego or self-structure defines itself against others. Now, more than ever, different realities and polarized belief systems are coexisting on Earth. It is possible for different people to experience completely different thoughts and emotional reactions to the very same external phenomena. In the same way, samsara and nirvana, heaven and hell, are two different dimensions, occupying the very same word. Dimensionality, or one's perspective, is simply a matter of becoming habituated to a new way of perceiving the world. Upon expanding consciousness, we become free of perspective, of justification, or prejudice, or free to create new perspective because there is no self-invested or attached to a particular viewpoint. The greatest minds in human history have often pointed to levels of thoughts beyond their limited self-structure. Einstein said, the true measure of a human being is determined primarily by the measure and sense in which he has attained liberation from the self. So it is not that thinking and the existence of the self is bad. Thinking is a wonderful tool when the mind is in synergy with the heart. In Vendetta, it is said that the mind makes a good servant but a poor master. The ego perpetually filters reality through language and labels and is constantly judging, preferring one person over another. When the mind and senses are our master, they will create endless suffering, endless craving and aversion, locking us into the matrix of thinking. If we want to realize consciousness, do not judge our thoughts as good or bad, but find out who we are prior to our thought, prior to the senses. When all labels are dropped, then it is possible to see things as they are. The moment The moment we realize that if we change our inner world, we must be prepared to change the outer world too. Our old structure, our old identity must become the dead soil out of which new growth comes out. The first step to awakening is to realize that we are identified with the matrix of the human mind, with the mask. Something within us must hear this truth and be aroused from its slumberland, or I call it sleeping soul. There is a part of us, something timeless, that always known the truth. The matrix of the mind distract us, entertain us, keep us endlessly doing, consuming, grasping in a cycle of craving and aversion with constantly changing forms, keeping us from the flowering of our consciousness, from our evolutionary birthright, which is consciousness. Pathological thinking is what passes for normal life. Our divine essence has become enslaved, identified with the limited self-structure. The great wisdom, the truth of who we are, is buried deep within our being. J. Krishnamurti said, "It is no measure of one's health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. Identification with the egoic mind is the sickness, and consciousness is the cure. The saints, sages, angels, and awakened beings throughout history have all learned the wisdom of self-surrender. How is it possible to realize the true self when we see through the veil of Maya or illusion and let go of the illusionary self? What is left? The consciousness, the true you, the true me, the true us. So if you come to a point of realizing your true nature, your true path of who you are, what are you doing and where are you going? You have expanding consciousness. So start from today. Do not blame or depend on the external factor or people or authority to change your life. You have the power to change the world. Period. This is serious, serious topic, and I don't like it. But at least I've channeled the serious topic, and then this is so deep, deep, deep. Then if you can capture the conclusion of what I'm talking about, you are already enlightened being. You are expanding consciousness, and then you can get out of the Ora Bora or the ring pass knot. I will give you a clue, but next time. I'm tired today. I want to take a rest. So, sending you a happy energy, a vibration of love to all who listen to this video, wishing you the best. And then uh, I pray that all of you can manifest your talent and your dream. May your dream come true in 2023. Uh, either it is money, but I don't want money. Either it is love, self-love, or relationship. Wishing you all the best. Bye bye. Sending you lots of love and light. Lily. Bye bye.